In 1991, two hikers found a body melting out of an Alpine glacier, and at first, everyone assumed the worst, a lost climber, dead a season or two. They were wrong. He'd been dead for 53 centuries. And the deeper scientists looked, the clearer one fact became: somebody had killed him. This is the oldest murder ever solved, and the case took 30 years to crack. September 19, 1991. Erika and Helmut, two hikers from Germany, were descending a high alpine pass in the Ötzi Alps. At over 3,000 meters, the ice had been retreating all summer, and something brown was sticking out of the meltwater. At first they thought it was garbage, or maybe a discarded doll. Then they saw the skin, and the exposed back, and they realized it was a person. Alpine rescue teams treated it like any other mountain accident, grim, but routine. It took days of clumsy recovery attempts, even a jackhammer, before anyone noticed the tools lying next to the body. A copper axe, a longbow, a quiver of arrows. Nothing like modern mountaineering gear. An archaeologist finally took one look and said what no one expected: this man was ancient. Genuinely ancient. Radiocarbon dating confirmed it. He died around 3300 BC. That makes him older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Older than Stonehenge. Older than the wheel reaching most of Europe. They named him after the valley where he was found, Otzi. But Otzi didn't just die in these mountains. He came prepared to live in them, for a while, at least. His clothes were a patchwork of at least 5 different animal hides, carefully sewn together with sinew. A bearskin cap, a woven grass cloak for the rain, shoes stuffed with dried grass for insulation, a design so effective, outdoor brands have copied it. He carried a small pouch with flint tools, and a kind of first aid kit, dried birch fungus, known even then to fight infection. And that copper axe. In 3300 BC, metal was almost unimaginably rare. Whoever carried this axe was someone important. Strange detail, his quiver held 14 arrows, but only 2 were finished and fletched. The rest were unshaped shafts. As if he'd left in a hurry, with no time to finish his own weapons. For a decade, this was the story: a Copper Age traveler, remarkably preserved, a window into a lost world. Then in 2001, a full-body CT scan found something every autopsy before it had missed. Lodged deep in his left shoulder, a stone arrowhead. It had torn straight through an artery. He would have bled out from the inside in a matter of minutes. Otzi wasn't a traveler who froze to death. Otzi was murdered. And once investigators started looking for a crime scene, the evidence kept getting stranger. His flint knife carried traces of blood, from someone else entirely. One of his own arrowheads carried blood from a second person. And his cloak, the one draped over his own back, carried the blood of a third and a fourth person. For different people's blood, on one man's gear. Something violent happened here, and it wasn't quick. There was one more clue, a fresh, unhealed cut across his hand, the kind you get gripping a blade during a fight. Investigators believe the wound was 1 or 2 days old when he died. So this is the sequence. Otzi fights, hand to hand, days before his death. People are hurt, maybe killed. He flees. He carries someone, wounded or dead, across his own shoulders, leaving their blood on his cloak. He climbs higher into the mountains, believing distance means safety. It doesn't. Someone tracks him, someone who knows this terrain as well as he does. The arrow struck him from behind and below, while he was climbing. He never saw it coming. He fell where he stood, alone, bleeding, thousands of meters up, in a place no one would find him for 5,300 years. And here's the detail that still puzzles investigators: nothing was taken. His copper axe, arguably the most valuable object in the entire valley, was left right beside him. This wasn't a robbery. Whoever killed Otzi didn't want his things. They wanted him. A blood feud. A tribal vendetta. Maybe Otzi was a chieftain or a healer, fleeing a fight he'd started, or one that found him anyway. We may never know his crime, if he had one. But we know, with real certainty now, exactly how he died. The body itself held one more secret, not about his death, but about how he lived. Across his skin, 61 tattoos. Not pictures or symbols, just simple lines and crosses, made by rubbing soot into small cuts. They weren't placed randomly. Every single one sits on a joint: his knees, his ankles, his lower back, his wrist. And CT scans found something remarkable. Those exact joints showed early arthritis, degeneration, chronic pain. This wasn't decoration. It looks like ancient pain treatment, needles, soot, and pressure points. Almost identical, in principle, to acupuncture, documented in China 2,000 years later. If that theory holds, Otzi is walking evidence that Europe was practicing targeted pain medicine millennia before written history recorded it anywhere. His body kept talking, long after death. Scientists finally opened his stomach in 2018. His last meal, fatty wild goat meat, grain, and a strange final ingredient, toxic bracken fern. Not enough to poison him, just enough to suggest he was self-medicating against parasites already living in his gut. He also carried the oldest confirmed case of Lyme disease on record, and hardened arteries, heart disease, in a man who spent his life climbing mountains. Even the bacteria in his stomach told a migration story, a lineage closer to South Asia than to the Alps around him. Every test peeled back another 5,000 years. And then, strangely, the story turned back on the living. Rainer Henn, the forensic examiner who first handled the body, died in a car crash on his way to a conference about the discovery. The mountain guide who helped recover him died in an avalanche a few years later. The journalist who filmed the recovery died of a brain tumor. The lead archaeologist died from complications of an illness soon after. And the scientist who first found that mysterious 4-person blood evidence died of a rare, previously undiagnosed blood disorder. The press had a name ready-made, the curse of the Iceman. Scientists point out hundreds of people worked on this case over 30 years, and only a handful died, no different from any large research project. Coincidence, they say. But coincidence rarely makes for good headlines, and this one still circles the internet today. Today, Otzi doesn't rest in the mountains that killed him. He rests in a special cell in a museum in Bolzano, Italy. Kept at glacier temperature, glacier humidity, visible only through a small refrigerated window. Only a handful of scientists have ever been allowed to touch him directly. So we return to where we started, a body in the ice, and a killing no one witnessed. Except now we do know. An ambush, from below, from someone who knew these mountains. A fight days before, a wound that never had time to heal, and a copper axe left untouched beside a man who was never robbed, only hunted. 5,300 years later, the ice finally told us who won that fight, and who didn't. It just never told us why.